Hi folks, CodeTutor here and my name is Anil Deshpande. Welcome to another video on testing databases in Android. In the previous video, we saw how to test the database using the simple in-memory mechanism. And in this video, we are going to shift our focus towards another way of testing the database, which is using Robolectric. Why we are doing this? Because the disadvantage with the previous mechanism is you are not really testing SQLite database, you are testing it using a fake. You are creating a custom in-memory database and that's what you are testing it. It's fast, but it's not really good enough to simulate a real SQLite database. And that is where the Robolectric framework comes into picture. What is Robolectric? It is a library or a framework created by the Google team. It is a framework for writing the unit test cases for Android. And in this case, we are specifically focusing on how to use this library for simulating the SQLite so that we can test it. And because we can simulate SQLite queries and everything in much better manner using Robolectric, because framework provides it out of box, it is much better than what you would have done in case of simple in memory. So without much further ado, let's get into a demo. So if you just recall, this is the same code base that we are using, and this is the in-memory country DAO that we had implemented in the previous video, and this was the test case that we implemented using that in-memory DAO. We will not use this anymore. We will write a new class which will be using the Robolectric. But before we do that, we have to ensure that we add certain dependencies in the build Gradle file. So I have already added it. So if you come down here, I have added the dependency of the Robolectric, and this is very much in compliant with JUnit framework that you might be already using. So this goes along with JUnit framework that you would be using to write the test cases. So that is already done. I have already synced my project. So let's proceed with writing the test classes. And if you are wondering whether I already have implemented the database, yes, I have already done it. Here are the database classes with the converters and everything. So it is very much in compliant with the standard Room way of database implementation. If you are not familiar with how to implement Room database, I suggest you go through the Room database series on CodeTutor. So let's get down to implementing the class that tests the database using Robolectric. So what I will do is, let me minimize this. Here, let me create another new Kotlin class called as country room DAO Robolectric test. And this class I will annotate with run with Robolectric test runner class. So let's take a moment and explain you what I just did. I created local unit test for room database using the Robolectric, and to do that I am using JUnit's run with annotation. We have already used this run with parameterized tests that we have written earlier in the series. So it is just that we are using the same annotation, but instead of parameterized runners, we are using Robolectric test runner in this case. Now inside this, the first thing that we have to do is we will have to create the instances of database and DAO. So let me create app database and country room DAO, and then I can get started with writing before function, which is function setup. And one more thing that we have to do when we are working with Robolectric test runner is we will have to ensure that our test cases run in a synchronous way, because typically the database calls are async behavior. With that, it would become very difficult to test. To make it easy to test it in a synchronous manner, we have to add this particular line, that is get rule InstantTaskExecutorRule. This basically enforces or makes it easy for us to run our database calls with the SQLite query in a synchronous manner. So do not forget to add this particular line. And then in the setup, we will now get started with setting up with the room database. Let me create a variable val context is equal to application provider dot get application context. Pass the context. Once we have the context, we can create the database, that is db is equal to room dot in memory database builder, pass the context, and then app database class Java. Then after that dot allow main thread queries, because you want to test it in an easier fashion on the main thread, because this is not a real application, this is a test case that you are running. And then dot build, and that is going to give me the database. And then data access object is equal to db dot country down. That's it. Now we have set up the in-memory database using the Robolectric. And after setup, we will have to write the tear down. So after write function tear down, and in the tear down, I will close the database. So now we are done with the implementation of tear down. Now we will have to start writing the actual test cases. So let us start. We will write very similar test cases that we had written earlier as well. So if you just recall, in the in-memory country.test, we had written these functions like insert and read test, insert multiple and read test, replace existing country test. We would like to test same things, just that instead of using in-memory, we are going to use Robolectric. So let me write test function insert and read test, and then run test. Why are we writing the run test? So that we can execute these database tests on the main thread. This is in a way like run blocking, but not really. It is meant for testing. And once again, first we will have to arrange, and after that we will have to act, which is insert and then get the result, and then finally we will have to assert, which is we are checking what is the size, what is the country, what is the drive side. And if I run this, hopefully should work. Let us wait and watch. Yeah, it's working fine. And it slightly took more time than what had happened earlier case, which was in memory test cases. Of course, that is expected because you are really simulating a SQLite database, queries, everything now. So let us write remaining test cases. Let me write another test function insert multiple and read test, run test, and once again we will do the same thing, just that we will do the multiple insertions. We will create a list of multiple countries, we will insert those, and then we are asserting whether the insertion happened properly or not. Let's write next test case function, and in this case we are checking whether the replacement of an existing country happens properly or not. So run test. Initially we will add one set of country, which is Canada and drive side right, and after that we will insert same country with drive side left. The expectation is there should not be two countries, there should be only one country, but it should get updated with the drive side as left, and that is what we are going to assert. This is very similar to what we had done last time. So we have written all the three test cases, and instead of running them individually, what I can do is I can go back to the class here and click on run, and we should get the result. Yeah, as you can see, initially first test case takes a little bit longer time. It took almost 1.5 seconds, but then remaining test cases, once the setup is done, take much shorter time, 9 millisecond or 7 millisecond, which is still higher than what was happening in case of in-memory country DAO. If I run this, you will observe that this runs even much faster. Of course, it will run like that, but that is not realistic simulation of a real SQLite database that Robolectric provides. So that's it in this particular video. In the next video, we will go through the last remaining way of testing the SQLite database, which is instrumented way of testing that. Brings us to the end of this particular video. Don't forget to like, comment, share the video and subscribe to the channel. Take care. Bye.